Yeah, you know, this was going to be a serious talk because I brought a book on stage, but in case I miss my thoughts, I'm going to take a moment or two. All right. Thank you so much for having me. This is great being back here. Like, I was talking with some of the other speakers that are here for the first time, and like was talking about, yeah, and I'm coming from Cluj, you know, it's a similar city with Timișoara and so on. And like we have this JS Heroes conference and blah, blah, blah. And like my first thought is always like, I just feel like home here because it just feels like everything kind of resonates, like we're, yeah. So kudos to everyone here. You're doing an awesome job. And yeah, I promise I'm going to attend or speak at any future revo.js events from here on. Right, so my name is Alex, as mentioned. I work as a product engineer at Code Sandbox. Just quick show of hands. Anyone here using Code Sandbox? Oh, okay, I didn't expect as many hands. Do come find me after this talk. I'm really curious about your experience, and I want to talk with you more about like cloud development. Curious if you want to try that out. Founder of JS Heroes, already mentioned, not gonna stay on that. You can find me on Twitter at Alex and Moldovan, and I'm still going to call it that, so just sue me or something. And you can find the slides already online. I tweeted them. They're at bit.ly/ethicalchoice, or you can scan the QR code, and I'll have the same slide at the end in case you forget about this and whatever. Right, so we are at a tech conference. We are mostly, I assume, you know, developers. But this is going to probably be the least technical talk of this conference. And it made me wonder, like we always go to events like this and you see, you have on stage a lot of talks, and we usually talk, like, speakers and in general, the audience talks about our problems, our community problems, right? Whether they are about, you know, whichever framework or tool I should use, or whichever is the hottest thing, or whichever pattern or architecture or whatnot. We rarely kind of step kind of outside of the bubble and talk about maybe some of the things that we impact or some of the problems that we create out there. And the thing is, if you go outside of the kind of engineering tech developer bubble and you want to read about like what's tech doing these days, well, it doesn't look too good, right? Like you have all these articles on, like, especially on kind of big tech, you know, stealing your data and rigging election, and pretty much tech has transitioned over the past 10 years from this kind of shiny thing that like everyone wants to adopt to almost like the root of evil in the world, if you want. And I know I promise this is not going to be about, you know, the attention economy and big tech and so on, because I'm not talking to the audience that can do anything about this. So, you know, as much as I would have things to say to my boy Mark here, I'm going to talk about things that we as developers, engineers, whatever we call ourselves, designers, product people, marketers, the things that we can impact, the things that we can, you know, change to make things better for the users, to make sure that we're not creating problems, we're not kind of disrupting, you know, the lives and the well-being of other people that kind of use our services and applications. So, yeah, that in mind, this was supposed to be the previous slide. Yeah, it's a tiny mistake. I want to, in the spirit of the conference, rethink and revisit and revolve, but most likely rethink and revisit the way we build, the way we design, and the way we kind of create the services and the products that our users will end up using and how they are using them in the end. So this could be very well called ethical choices for the rest of us, right? Like for like the things that we have impact on, the things that we can change. Because let's be honest, we're not really doing a great job at this, right? This is an example of a Romanian news outlet, and don't want to kind of like shit on their work because they're actually doing great work, but their website, and this is the classic website in 2023, right? Hello, with a big notification at the top if you want to subscribe to notifications, and then this big banner at the bottom with like cookie consent, right? And remember Ben's talk from yesterday, like when you make the default option, when the UX kind of makes it like, oh, just accept all, then you're just shitting on everything that GDPR was made for, right? Because all of a sudden, like all the cookies are there, every tracking, every thing is kind of sold and resold to whatever third-party like company that kind of gets that data. So the thing is that these are things that we can change, right? We cannot really change how big companies operate, or maybe we can, but like we have to start small. We can change internally, like our small context, the things we can, you know, just impact on how things are run inside the company. If you open this, anyone has ever opened like the other option? Like you have, this is such a confusing UI. Like this is like a third party that kind of manages cookies nowadays. Apparently, I haven't read a lot about it. What the hell? But it's like I don't even know. Like, are these options on and off? Like, and again, you have the same freaking just allow all option. Like you either need to, as a user, you need to either spend a lot of time figuring out how to configure this thing so that it doesn't use the cookies or like doesn't, you know, affect anything privacy related, or you just, because what's your goal, right? You're coming to read a piece of news. You don't want to deal with what the hell cookies are. Yeah, so yeah, giving quick escapes in terms of UX might feel like a right pattern for you, but it might actually not be the right thing to do for the user. And I have a bunch of other examples. When this is an older version of Miro, I hope they changed it. I haven't checked it. But a while ago, you were signing up and then you were automatically receiving emails on all these different things. It's quite small, so sorry for that. But it's basically things like receive an email when someone adds a comment, when a board is shared with me, when a board is shared with a team, like all these things. And there's no button to just don't send me any emails, right? If you don't want any emails, you have to manually go and uncheck every little checkbox there, which again is something that you maybe don't want to waste time on this, you're tired. These are obstructions in the way of the user. And I can also throw my company here under the bus. I was looking for newsletters that don't have clear unsubscribe links, right? And surprise, surprise, like one of our newsletters has this very kind of in low contrast unsubscribe link, and it doesn't look like a link, right? So if you're not like a power user of email, if that thing exists, it's like you don't really know that these unsubscribe links are somewhere in the bottom hidden and hard to click on. So I think we can do better on this. And just a quick kind of disclaimer before I go even further. I'm no expert on ethics. I'm not expert on kind of the right things to do here. I have no kind of formal education in this. I just feel like it's a good opportunity. This kind of conference is a good opportunity to talk about these things, to kind of open the discussion and figure out if there are things we can change, if there are things we can do better, or or maybe just to raise awareness on the things that we have a choice on, and we have the power to change or to impact or to change pretty much. So I'm gonna take a sip of water while I wait for this. First thing I want to talk about is ethics and choices. Because even if we are small, again, even if we have like our roles of like engineers and designers and just individual contributors in our companies, we actually have we always make decisions, we always have choices. And all those engineering choices and design choices and product choices, this works now. And every kind of aspect of the product that we are building that we decide on, they have an impact on the users. Some of them might have like a neutral impact or like just no impact at all, but they either do have like a positive change or a negative change for our users. And of course, the goal of ethics and of making the ethical choice here is to make sure that we aim for the positive outcome for this. And you might say, well, actually, I don't want to get burdened with this, and I don't really make a lot of choices that impact the users. I'm not, in a position maybe to do that. But inaction in a team is also a choice, and it has a term actually. This is called ethical fading, where you don't and again, this is actually true for, I guess, most big tech companies. No one really sets up a company and says, oh, I want to create evil in the world, so let me set up this company and build this software that creates evil. No, it creeps over time, and this is what ethical fading is about. Like, no one actually wants to take, like, no one wants to own responsibility for the choices that they make. They just, slowly add some stuff, they rebuild, like they make changes to their products in a way that they kind of shift from a neutral product to something that maybe harms users or doesn't take into account their privacy or their preferences and whatnot. So keep that in mind, that it doesn't have to be like an active choice that takes the product or takes the service or whatever you're building into the direction of a non-ethical product. If I were to kind of summarize or like just have some ground rules for what software products should aim for, is I'm trying to think this kind of 3 rules is: don't harm users, respect their rights, and prioritize their needs. And keep this in mind. Thank you. So keep this in mind, because I'm going to show you some patterns that some of them are like intentionally messing these up. Some of them are helping these, and it's going to be important kind of to frame this, like to understand why we're doing this. So yeah, don't harm users, respect their rights, and prioritize their needs. So next, we're going to look at patterns that make or break these rules, these ethical rules about how to build products. And first, we're going to look at the patterns that have a negative impact, intentionally or unintentionally creating bad experiences that have bad outcomes for the users. In terms of UI UX, these are framed under the concept of deceptive patterns. It used to be called also dark patterns, so you'll find a mix of these in articles if you look about this. There's this great website called deceptive.design. And they recently actually launched a book. I have not read it, but maybe worth checking out. And they have also at the top, they have a bunch of classifications of patterns that are deceiving users into doing certain things. We're going to go through some of them. They also have a lot of cases that show like companies that are actively doing or intentionally doing or implementing some of these patterns. And they also have laws, like they showcase laws that are somehow, that are usually created against some of these patterns to make sure that they don't get, like the users don't get abused through them. All right, let's look at some of the patterns actually. 2 of them, like just put together because they're kind of similar, is they are fake urgency and fake scarcity. And this is when, and again, keep this in mind, these are all things that we can have a word, like we can make a choice here whether we implement them or not. It's not something that comes as a very top-level decision, like this is how the company works, right? And this is one example is on Booking.com, right? It's very famous. Actually, Booking got sued a bunch of times, and they actually removed a lot of these things, but they're still out there, where they have all these messages, like just sprinkled around when you want to book something, that just give you this feeling that, hey, this is, there's limited supply, this is running out, just quickly buy this. And you will notice that whenever you go to Booking, you have these messages. There's no time where there's no urgency or there's no scarcity, which is definitely not the way like hotels and rentals work. So they're always trying to come up with the wording that best puts you in a state of, oh my God, I need to book this because if not, I'm going to lose it. Another classic example is counters. I so hate counters on things. Why do you need to show me the seconds in which, like how many seconds there are left until prices increase? And prices increase in what? Like they never tell you this information. They just say, buy this product or buy this service right now, or else prices will increase in 1 day, blah, 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 and so on. So these are all patterns that kind of push you into making rash decisions about buying or buying into a service or whatever. The next pattern is obstruction. I think you've probably also been a victim of this, if you want. I'm pretty sure you have like a lot of Wizz Air flights here coming around, like flying out from Timișoara. When you go to Wizz Air and you want to book like the cheapest possible flight in an easy way, you can't. You just always have to go through their process. You have to make sure that you're mentally prepared to kind of not buy into some extra service that just adds stuff to your bill. The baggage is like the most annoying one. I don't want a checked-in baggage. It's a very small checkbox at the bottom here. But the instinct, like when you're not paying attention to this, you might just pick up the smallest one because, of course, that's what they want. And this is instead, like I just go and I say I want the cheapest flight, but then I still have to go through all these steps. So this is kind of like pushing a lot of hurdles in my way, and I have to always make sure I'm not buying into extra stuff. Another pattern is confirm shaming, which is the easiest one to act on. It's just a word, it's just a sentence usually, right? No thanks, I'm not into savings, or no thanks, I don't want a 10% discount, and it's very small, of course, the button that compared to the CTA there to continue. Or the classic, no thanks, I don't want unlimited one-day delivery. These are all messages kind of created to shaming you into not, like, if you don't buy the product, if you don't have the, if you don't upgrade to whatever it is, you feel like you're missing out or something, or at least you're ashamed that you're doing this. It's like you're exiting this deal on the back door. Again, very bad practice, and something that we can very easily say to our, if we know that inside our companies we have these things, just go to your marketing people, content people, say, hey, this is not okay. Like, we shouldn't be, shaming people for not taking our offer here. And now I'm going to step into like a more serious kind of area, and I am going to go a bit on like the big tech and stuff like that, but I won't stay here for long, so I promise I'm going to come back to the things that we have more control of. But I do want to highlight that attention grabbing and addiction are some of the most challenging problems with tech nowadays, and we do see a lot of kind of products nowadays being built with the idea of let's try to create engagement, let's try to, we measure our success by the number of minutes, number of hours users spend on these. And there's nothing wrong with that when the purpose is clear, right? When you have an app like Duolingo, it's okay that you're creating engagement because the outcome, like what you want to achieve is that the user will end up spending more time, so will learn better a language, right? This is a very good use of gamification and stuff like that. But nowadays, we throw gamification on any product. Like, I don't need karma points, stars, or like kisses, whatever quantifies as a gamification thing on any piece of product. So the thing is, the design community has been, like this book has been very popular in the design community in the last years. And I haven't read it, so I'm not going to bash it or anything, but I do know that it's very controversial now. And when you look at the subtitle there, it says, how to build habit-forming products. And whenever I read this, it's like my instinct says, well, I remember there's a quote that's kind of troublesome about this. And it goes like this: only drug dealers and software companies call their customers users. And this is problematic, right? It's in a way, it's funny, but it's sad at the same time, right? Because especially coming from the design area, we are kind of, by default, when you think about building a product, we think about how to create engagement without thinking of why do we want to create that engagement. So just something to think about. And if you want to read more, if you want to get more into this, because again, sometimes these things are harder to manage in a company, and I'm not saying we have a choice necessarily to go one way or another, but there's this great podcast that I recommend, and also the whole the whole group here, like if you go to the website, is the humanetech.com, is the Center for Humane Technology, and they have this great podcast called Your Undivided Attention, where they tackle pretty much all these things around big tech, attention economy, the attention economy, and everything that we can do to kind of make sure that tech is not really harming us at a global scale. So if you're interested in a more, let's say, a global approach to this is a great resource. Okay, we went to the negative part. Let's go to the positive impact part a bit. And again, keeping in mind we want to not harm users, respect their rights, and prioritize their needs. What can we do? We can keep them informed, for example. So in case there's a subscription that will be renewed, in case there's anything like we're going to take money from them or anything like that, make sure you send in advance messages. You don't just charge them because the subscription period ended. Another thing is privacy by default, and this is again something that we control together with the product teams that we work in. Who here has Google Analytics in their products? Okay, no, not as many hands as I. It's a good thing that there are not so many hands. Stop using it. Don't put Google Analytics on any product because it's just not worth it, right? There are tons of analytics tools that value privacy, that don't sell data to other people. There are things like Fathom Analytics, there are things like SplitBee that recently got acquired by Vercel, so now it's Vercel Analytics. These are so easy to set up. They have the same functionality as Google Analytics, but they are fully GDPR compliant. They store data in the EU, for example, again, for GDPR purposes. And they're just better products at this, right? And also on data and privacy, on this time, minimal data collection. Why do we need all the data about the users, right? When we make a registration form, make sure that everything you put in that registration form is actually relevant for you as a business, as a company, as you'll be doing something with that data later. Because every piece of data you get is kind of liability, right? Whenever you have something like you have a breach or like any security incident, you might lose data, and the more data you have, the more problems you have. So if not for the sake of just user privacy and user data privacy, just for the sake of you not being sued on too many accounts, maybe make sure you don't ask for too much data when someone registers on your website. And finally, or not finally, another pattern is, or another thing, general thing that we can do for our users is, of course, accessibility. I can give a full talk on this, like I'm a big advocate on accessibility patterns. I just want to make sure that everyone here understands that doing the right thing when it comes to building interfaces means also making sure that you think of the user, you think of their needs and all the different contexts in which they might be interacting with the products or services, and this is pretty much what accessibility is about. Just going even beyond the idea of making sure people with disabilities have access to this. This is tackling pretty much anyone, can tackle anyone in the room. And finally, prioritize and respect user needs. For example, if users have certain preferences, like they might have problem with strong animations, so they don't want motion on their operating system. There's a rule you can use, a media query you can use, so that you disable some of your animations, so that you respect those user needs and you bring them into your products. And these are, again, things that we have a choice to act on. We can easily implement these. We don't even need sometimes buy-in from anyone else. It's just something like doing our jobs and making sure that we make a better product out there. And I do want to highlight one example, which I personally always thought very kind of compelling when it comes to understanding who your users are. This is association from Romania that supports women and children that have been victims of domestic violence. And they have this button on the right side, which is always hovering there, which says, if you're being disturbed, click on this button. it will redirect you to a weather app, and it will erase the fact that you've been on this website from your computer. And just think about it, right? When you're a victim of domestic violence, you might be still in danger. You might be still in the context where you might be a victim in the future. So understanding how your users are interacting, which is your target audience, and what kind of problems they might be dealing with is really key to making a better experience for them, short-term and long-term. Okay. I have 5 minutes, okay? I have time. Let's move to try to end this with putting things in order now. We've seen a bunch of patterns, we've seen a lot of examples. How can we better, build this framework for adopting ethics at an individual level, but then also at the company level? And we saw some of these previous examples, and one of the ground rules, or like one of the common denominators, if you want, of some of these examples, is that we start with empathy. We need to first, to start any process of making better ethical choices for our products, we need to understand the users. We need to empathize with their needs and really get to know why, again, why are they using this? What are the areas in which they could be harmed by our services or products, and so on and so forth. After we have learned this, or after we learn as, whatever, front-end engineers, designers, back-end people, whatever our role is, after we have this, it's time to expand on the knowledge. And hopefully this talk at least gave you a few insights into where you could expand this knowledge, right? You can start, again, you're still at an internal level. You can start asking questions about, am I building the right thing here? Is this interface, accessible? Is this, thing that I'm adding, like a third party or something, sharing data maybe about our users with anyone else? You can start asking these questions, like make that kind of, ethical inner voice, kind of come up with scenarios and ways in which this might be misused, or like the thing that we are building is not necessarily the right thing. And then you start kind of sharing these things, like you go from an individual level to a team level to a company level, and you're building the culture around ethics with this. And remember, I mentioned this example at the beginning where our newsletter had the unsubscribe link, which was not really a link. Well, the second part of the story is that I went on our internal Slack and I talked with the team about this, and we immediately said, oh yeah, sure, that's a good catch, we just missed this. There's rarely like bad intentions in some of these decisions. And just making sure that you voice your concerns, you raise the flag whenever something happens, kind of creates this culture of trust inside the company and builds the culture around ethics, and makes sure that ethics is part of the decision making where it comes to, do we go with A or do we go with B? Well, you have also the ethics filter to consider at that point. And of course, if the company is bigger, or if you need more formal things, you can build a process around this. In some scenarios, in a smaller team, just the culture, the fact that people have this kind of continuous communication between them as, hey, we're doing this, we're always raising the flag whenever something happens, that might be enough. But in case of a bigger company, you might want to formalize a process as, a notion, like a doc where you have all the rules that you follow. Maybe it's part of your company values. It's very important that at this point you get kind of the buy-in of the business and every top-level person in the company. So it's kind of like if you like this framework you found, it's kind of like a bottom-up thing where you start from, and that's why again I'm speaking in front of this audience here, because it starts from us, it starts from individual contributors, empathizing with users, understanding who they are building the products for, building the knowledge of what are the possible issues with what we're building, creating this culture around ethics, and then having the process to make sure these are kind of set in stone. And again, bottom-up approach, because I'm not speaking in front of a room of like Silicon Valley CEOs, I'm speaking in front of a dev community. So this is how we can act inside our context, teams, and companies. And then, just quickly before I close, references and recommendations. I have this book, Ethical Design Handbook. This is an awesome book, and I have it as a giveaway. So come find me after the talk if you want. I have one copy. I'm happy to share with someone that's interested in learning more about ethics, and I, of course, recommend it if you want to buy it online. Another book which is a bit more critical on kind of big tech is Ruined by Design by Mark Monteiro. And I already recommended your undivided attention. Really go check that out. It's a great podcast. So if this resonated with you in any way, I'm super happy to. We have like 45 minutes of break now, minus 1 minute that I stole with running over. I'm really curious to talk with you all about this, to kind of share more insights maybe on your perspective on ethical choices and how you make these things. If that, if anything remotely that what I said here kind of resonates with you, I'm really looking forward to hearing from you maybe months from now saying, hey, I followed maybe some of these advices, or I followed some of these resources and we made those changes inside the companies. I think that every one of us can be this advocate in all our contexts, like this advocate for user, the advocate for ethical decisions inside the companies. And I'm going to leave you with this quote, which I'm always adapting, but this time I'm adapting it on ethics. Every team has a person that cares about ethics more than the others. And if you don't know who that person is, it might be you. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and see you in the break.